Tommy Lee Jones says, no, a person is smart and you can reason with a person. People are stupid, panicky animals.
You justify it by I panic bought to stop the panic buyers from taking it all.
Because there was just queues of traffic with people queuing for 30 minutes, an hour and a half to get petrol.
And that's that emotional rush that people get. And that's what it channels into. So when we've got Maslow, we want security, right? And people, they've got if you don't feel secure.
The little old lady in front of them at the petrol station filled up with £2.50 worth of petrol.
I suppose the science a little bit about the amygdala, Maslow, reactions, response control.
InspirationNation, hello, Lee Kemp here for another week on the podcast with my very good amigos, Ryan Boniface and Jose Noya. How are we this week, guys?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
All good.
Would you like me throwing a bit of Espanol in there for you, Joseph, as well?
Oh, do you know what? My listening skills weren't too good because I missed it, clearly.
Oh, you just don't care, do you? Too busy just in your own little world, not thinking about anyone else. That's what they always say about you, Joe.
I'm just keeping on the TikTok. That was all.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We are, of course, let's mention we are live on TikTok. Used to be 8:30 every Tuesday. We're now on. Check us out between 6 and 6:30. We go some live sometime between then. Just search out Jose Noya on TikTok and you can join us. And of course, thank you everyone who's listening across all podcast platforms or on YouTube at Jose Noya Inspiration Nation. Hoping to give you some inspiration again this week. So this week, it is my topic again, mostly because I was tardy and missed about 12 weeks in a row. I've listened to the feedback and the nation is saying they are absolutely sick and tired of hearing about Joe. Now, I want to talk about Joe some more, but we need to listen to the audience and they are sick of you, Joe. I hope you can live with that.
Yeah, no problem, Lee. Thank you for encouraging that.
As you know, I'm just the voice of the people, just a conduit for what the nation is thinking. So we're going to head back to a different one-off subject this week. So it's for me, and I want to talk about something that is topical, although I feel like we're in the eye of the storm between things at the moment. And I want to talk about panic buying. Dun, dun, dun.
You know what? You stole my blooming subject. I was going to use that.
Well,
I can't believe you've done that.
It's easy to say that, Joe. Easy to say that. That was going to be my subject. Well, it's good because you have lots of thoughts on this then. So I'm going to start off with my little analogies to interact to, and I'm certain this will be mentioned in another podcast. People who are new to the show, go back, listen to our archive. 135 previous wonderful episodes in there. Just head over to InspirationNation.org.uk. And I think I've not used it for a while, but I talk about I call it the Men in Black concept, and it's to do with talking to individuals as opposed to groups of people. And there's a quote from Men in Black that I always get wrong, and I've paraphrased it and I've made it my own, but the gist of it's still there. And in the very, very, very first Men in Black, that's a classic old film for you, Ryan, about aliens, by the way.
I watched it probably in the late 90s when I was a toddler, but I've got no recollection.
So there's a bit in it where Will Smith says to Tommy Lee Jones, what's wrong? Why can't you just tell people about aliens? People are smart, they'll get it. And Tommy Lee Jones says, no, a person is smart and you can reason with a person. People are stupid, panicky animals, is what he says. And it's that mentality of if you were to sit down with one person, and I'll use the most recent one of petrol as an example. And as you do, I've spoken with friends, I've spoken with family, I've spoken with people at work, spoken to neighbours, and generally it always ends up in the same place that this was something that went out in the media. There isn't really an issue. And if the media hadn't put out there was a problem, there'd never be an issue. And on an individual one-on-one basis, you can kind of have that discussion. So you don't need to do this. It's fine. Everything's good and they'll probably agree. If you've got 100 people and try and say that, it will be completely different. And there will be a panic that builds up. And it's the difference between that, I suppose, group mentality as opposed to an individual. And so that concept is what I want to talk about. No firm answer, no direction, but more kind of, again, food for thought thing for people out there and for us, because we've had this recently last few weeks. I live here at Inspiration Nation Towers, just around the corner from a petrol station. And I'm able to see it firsthand went on during the week. I had to take a very alternate route out of my road for a good week because there was just queues of traffic with people queuing for 30 minutes, an hour and a half to get petrol. If I opened my front door, I would hear the horns beeping from people as they started to get very aggressive with people about it. All, not normal everyday things, but this happened because one person worries, the next person then has to worry in case that person in front of them gets it all. And then it goes on and on. And I was part of this. I had to, when there was an opportunity, I saw a petrol station, I pulled in and I filled up, not necessarily because I needed it, but because I knew if I didn't, I'd probably be waiting for an hour if I got any at all when I actually needed some. And I was part of that mob, but I feel because of it, as I expect most people in the situation are, even though right at the start, there was a catalyst for it, if that makes sense. We obviously had this a couple of years ago at the start of coronavirus when pasta, rice and loo rolls disappeared off the shelf. And in fact, it's quite amusing. Well, I say amusing. It's amusing retrospectively now. But see, there was the loo roll and the pasta thing. And I think that took, in my memory, months to recover before you weren't allowed to buy like more than 2 bags of pasta in the shop and everything. And there was that initial panic. And then as lockdown started to settle in, it kind of went through waves of people, that had basically dried itself out and there's none left. And then it was, we need to get, I can't remember what the next thing was, but it went during a week where the panic was then there's a couple of days where it was chocolate. And everyone's saying, now that that's gone, people are going to be after the chocolate. And the chocolate shelves were stripped bare. And I remember going to Sainsbury's. It wasn't to get it, but I saw the aisle was to get something else. And it was stripped bare except for like the low fat, blah, blah, whatever chocolate that no one bought. And then it was the next day, it was alcohol was going to be next. And then other than, I think I ended up buying a like gluten-free type beer because it's the only one that was left. All the beer was stripped off the shelves as well. And it kind of went, using a Maslow thing on a hierarchy of needs, it's like each thing got covered, then everyone panic bought the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, but it kind of perpetuated itself. And I suppose as a starter, I just wondered your guys' view on the recent petrol thing, the talk about worries for Christmas, what happened last year, so your experience or your thoughts on it.
Ryan, do you want to go?
Yeah, can do. I, like most things, don't really care that much. It doesn't really bother
Ryan,
me, really.
I don't care Boniface. I sense a t-shirt coming on. It's been a while since we added a new one.
And a hashtag.
We've spoken about it before, but it didn't really bother me that much. Like I was back in the office working when I first heard that this was a thing, and apparently it'd been a thing for 2-3 days. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, well, I've only got like 50 miles left in my car. And that would normally do me like 3-4 days of like travel. I usually drive my car down to like 1 mile left, but I know a lot of people can't deal with things
I've played
like
that game in the past. I've literally rolled into the petrol station as the engine is cut out from running out of fuel twice.
Wow.
I always win that game until you always win it until you don't, I guess, and then you'll never do it again. But I've never been. I have
also done the long walk and bought a jerry can, filled it up with fuel, and walked back to the car again.
Oh, I've not had to do that one, thankfully.
Wow.
But so I was like, all right, okay, I may as well go out and get some, and but I didn't. I got some for the same reason as Julie, because if I didn't get some, I don't know when the next opportunity would be to get some. And essentially, I justify it by I panic bought to stop the panic buyers from taking it all. And then it made me wonder how many people panic buy, because panic buyers were going to panic buy the stuff.
And I think that my opinion is that will be the majority of people will be doing that.
Yeah, I don't want to be in a position where I don't have to travel that far, but I don't want to be in a position where I can't travel that far because other people have prohibited me from doing so.
Yeah.
I've heard stories from friends and stuff saying that the little old lady in front of them at the petrol station filled up with £2.50 worth of petrol, which is just them topping up the tank from where it's gone from the full line an inch or like a couple of millimeters away from the full line, and they're like, oh, I've got to go fill back up.
Good impression. I like it there.
Yeah, but so I went and bought some fuel, and I'm probably gonna have to go and get some maybe tonight. And I don't even know if fuel's readily available again. I'm just gonna have to rock up to a petrol station and hope for the best.
So from where I am in the world, and South East is worst hit, obviously where we all are, it all looks to be pretty much back to normal now.
Okay. That's
So
good.
you should be good. Just for a bit of relevant advice that someone 6 months from now is listening to this could be like, that means nothing. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So hopefully I'll be able to get some today, which is good news. But I didn't buy into the toilet roll or the rice or the pasta, primarily because I don't do the shopping in my house, so it's not my problem.
That would be the reason. That would be the reason.
It's not my problem. But you could survive on other foods. Like if I went to a shop and my favorite trusted loaf of bread make and model or type or whatever you want to call it was unavailable.
You really don't do the shopping, do you?
No, it was unavailable. You just buy another one. If wholemeal wasn't available, then I'd buy Warburton's, or if that wasn't available, you'd buy, whatever. Bread is bread, right? Wrap is wrap, and fuel is fuel. Unless you get diesel instead of petrol, then that's a problem. But
that would be a big problem. It sounds you're going for the controversial angle there. Man.
It just look. You just get what you get, innit? A lot of people are very much creatures of habit, and for the most part, so am I. But with things like that, I'm not. It really doesn't bother me.
I think that's a good point there as well. So when we think about the pasta thing or the rice thing, for example, when it happened, how much of that is a comfort zone thing of, I always use that, I'm going to need to use that, rather than do I have to have it? And that, because as a species, we tend to be creatures of habit. I wonder how much of that plays a part in this.
Yeah. So it also taught me, the most popular brands of certain things, because they would always be the things that would go first. They would always be the things that would be taken before the others. So it's interesting from a market research perspective, I guess. But it's just, I think that it's difficult because the public just sees this as another thing since COVID, but it's just such poor timing that Brexit fell at the end of our COVID year, for example, and it just feels like these things are paramounting on top of each other. But yeah, it's just one of those. What are you going to do if you're out of bread and you're out of fuel? What are you gonna do?
Not make a sandwich.
Yeah, you'd have to
eat other things.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah,
what do you think, Jose? What do you think?
Beans not on toast.
Commonly known as beans.
A couple of things on this. I'm going to talk probably a little bit more about, firstly, the news and how that's got a massive influence. And I think
that's a good point.
I'm going to blame the news for this, because had they not said anything, I don't believe you'd had a panic that you've had. That's my opinion. I think
I share that opinion.
If the news had just gone and said, "Oh, where's the Queen's tea party," instead of reporting on the news, but I know why they do, because they want the attention, they want the viewers, and they want the viewership. So we've always got to be mindful about why things are happening and why, because they've got to have something out there that's going to grab people's attention, and this massively did grab people's attention. And I think that's a really bad thing for the media to have done that, because people are going to react to that and go out and buy petrol, and that's what's happened. And like you guys said, it goes on to one person, and I went out and bought petrol because I was down to a quarter of a tank, needed to fill up. But like I said, usually, well, each my wife gets it. But I want to talk about the other things. You raised a really good point around Maslow, and so once we get this news, it activates our primal brain, being the amygdala, right, the panicking, and that's that emotional rush that people get, and that's what it channels into. So when we got Maslow, Maslow, we want security, right? And people, they've got a few don't feel secure because they can't get to where they want to be. Maybe the car's going to conk out, or they do a lee and they're going to get a jerry can. So what I want people to, I suppose, take away from this is that, everything doesn't have to be a panic, and that we can control that. We can't control it's going to run out of fuel or something, but we can control our emotions and responses to it. Because I saw stuff on the news where people were actually being very, very violent towards each other because of the fuel, and again, I do blame the news for this. And had that not happened, these things wouldn't happen. But it's because people are reacting from their emotional brain, and so I just wanted to highlight that, really, and that fear and loss of security. So that's where I come from it, and I do think that news have got a lot to answer for when they post things like that or do things, because they have got a lot of influence, and I think it impacts everybody. And like you say, care workers, frontline staff get impacted by it because of this panicking. And of course, we should highlight that there's a shortage of HG drivers or whatever, but it shouldn't be done in a way which panics the public, because this is exactly what happens. The amygdala gets flooded, then it creates, adversarial situations that are pumped when we don't really need to be. So I'll just ask you, when you do feel like that, and you are getting fueled or whatever, please be mindful and don't react to things, and respond. We talked about this in the podcast previously, to respond to situations rather than reacting in a way that's not going to help another human being, because at the end of the day, we've all got to cooperate. And there will be more fuel at some point. And I think this, like you say, it's calmed down now. But that was my take on it.
I think it kind of ties into similarly to what I was saying, that you can only control what you can control. If places are out of fuel and you don't have any fuel, then, unfortunately, there's not a lot you can do. There's no point getting, it's easier said than done, but there's no point getting frustrated or angry about it, because that's not gonna magically suck the fuel out of people's car and put it back in the pump for you to take it, is it? So it's difficult in the heat at the moment, I accept, but I think just having a reasonable mind to things is helpful.
And I think that's what I want people to start to be like that, and just remember that, like you said, Ryan, I think it's a really good thing you said there about what you can and what you can't control. You can't control whether there's going to be enough HC drives to fuel the pumps, right? But what you can control is your response to that situation. And I think we all have duties as human beings to show kindness to one another, to show respect to one another, and to make sure that we do look after each other, right? That's one of my beliefs, and that we're all here on this planet, we're doing our best, and so let's help each other do our best, right? Instead of trying to tread on someone because they're nicking our pump, or whatever. Have that where we try and get on and help others, and you're absolutely right, Ron. I would agree with that. So that's my view, and anyway, I think I've said that again, but what do you reckon, Lee, then? Coming on that, what are your thoughts on all the sort of, I suppose, the science a little bit about the amygdala, Maslow, reactions, response, control?
And the news bit, the news is a very interesting point within this, I think, with everything that's going on, because I share it, and it's only like yours, and you're careful to say opinion. It's just my opinion, but I do think that if there wasn't any talk of there being a shortage, then people wouldn't have panicked, and we would have been in a situation where, because I know as well from my garage here and a couple of us I saw, that when they'd run out, there was normally a sign saying fuel back tomorrow or delivery overnight. So there can't be a problem if they're getting refuels that quickly. It's just, it's supply and demand. And if the demand doubles, quadruples, whatever it is, I was going to say trebles, but then I'm going backwards, aren't I? Increases exponentially like it has done, then it will run out. That's just common sense. So I do personally believe that's a thing. And it made me think, I've not thought about this for a while, but one of my best friends back in the day when I was a young'un, when he was at university, shout out to Adam all the way out in Australia, he did a psychology degree, and he told me about one of his papers he wrote, and he did a bit of a thesis on how much the media influences crime rate and people's behaviours and stuff like that. And he did a study and I might get it wrong, but it was to do with a place in America, the continent, where the Great Lakes are, and you've got, I think it's Chicago is like on one of the Great Lakes, and then on the other, in a border of Canada's in the middle, and there's a city on the other side in Canada. So they're pretty much in the same place on opposite sides of this lake. But the crime rate in Chicago is like, psh, and the crime rate in this other one is like, phew. And one of the key differences is the news reporting. And America, much like ours is very sensationalist. And I know it's not all like that, but it all focuses on the negative. This went wrong today. This was bad. This has been a problem. Whereas the approach with Canada is a lot more good news story stuff rather than just bad news story stuff. And it was his view on what a difference that makes, and that's what's going in all the time, and how it affects people, and the stark contrast in small crime rates, big crime rates, murders and everything. So I do think, well, it shows, it definitely has an effect, because I do think that's what's led to that. And then suddenly there's talk about shops running out of turkeys at Christmas, and lo and behold, the turkeys disappear off the shelf. I read a story yesterday saying, and it was like, shops are bare. We went to 6 different locations and there was no fruit, potatoes, blah, blah, pictures of empty shelves, etc., etc. I'm pretty sure there's a zombie meandering in the back of one of them. It was so desolate. I went shopping at 8 o'clock last night in the evening, to a shop that generally doesn't stock up 24/7. And there was no problem whatsoever. The shop was very quiet. Everything I needed to buy, I could buy. I overbought stuff such as chocolates that Ryan saw me eating before we started recording this. There wasn't an issue whatsoever, but the news would have me believe that if I didn't get on and book my online shop and buy a year's worth of shopping, I would be starving to death in a week. Slightly exaggerating, but you get the gist there. And this is, I do think that sort of stuff is fueling it, because again, if I did decide to panic buy stuff, and I did the same when it was the one before, as I don't particularly buy into that part about the panic buying the stuff, because I don't really want to eat out of tins for the next year because I've bought 50,000 of them and everything else goes off. So it's no point buying 50 loaves of bread and then throwing them all in the bin. And we remember lots of stuff happened like that during the early stages of the first lockdown. But if I did decide to do that, I'd be doing it because of the fear, like Ryan said earlier, of someone else doing it. And then they were probably doing it for the fear of someone else doing it, all the way back down the line to the first person who did it, not because they were like, I sense a HGV shortage, but because they read on the news, you better get in and buy your bread quickly. So I agree. I think it's a good view on it, Joe, and I do agree with that. And I suppose there's nothing we can say as like some golden bit of advice to everyone watching and listening that's just going to make all of this go away, because we'd have to all en masse in our millions of people agree we're not going to buy into this. And it's back to that analogy, and why I made it at the start is if we, and I mean the royal we, everyone listening, not just one of us, could speak to everyone one-on-one, we could probably all agree one-on-one, this is ridiculous, let's not do it. But in 6, 7, 8 million people, however many it is in the country, all it takes is one of them and the chain of events just starts going.
So I was just thinking, you could do the reverse thing. Maybe if we all stop doing it, it won't, someone has to do the other reverse. But as I say, negative is more powerful than negative, isn't it?
It's easier. I suppose it's easier to buy into. And again, it's human nature. We are built to protect ourselves, aren't we? And as soon as you get, and it is, I'm not going to be able to get somewhere. I can't get my kids to school. I can't get to the hospital in emergency because my card's run out, or there isn't going to be any food. We're going to be left. And then you get the Christmas bit that it's not even going to starve, but it's going to be this big, huge, important day for us culturally. Christmas dinner that all invokes feelings for all of us, and suddenly it's like, you're not going to have that this year. It's going to be desolate and miserable. That protective instinct just kicks in our heads, and it's easier to buy into. And I don't think necessarily as a negative thing on how our brains work. It's just that protective thing from when we used to live in the wild, and you might get eaten by a T-Rex or something like that. We lived with dinosaurs, right? That's how it worked.
That's right. Well done, Lee.
I saw the Flintstones. That said that we did.
There you go. The Flintstones. Educational content, right?
So it's how we, I suppose, rise above that primal programming and stuff.
So I was going to give a nugget, because I think we talked about how we can, not control the outside, but we can certainly control what we surround ourselves with, and not drink in so much news, not drink in so much stuff that impacts us and creates that negativity. And as you said, Lee, it's absolutely right. Negativity is much easier to buy into than being positive. They said, I think there's a study by HBR. What's it called? Can't remember the name. HBR, what is it? Oh, anyway, I can't remember the study, but they said you need like 8 positive pieces of information compared to 2 negatives to outweigh the 2 negatives, something like that. So it's absolutely crazy. And so, so that just shows you, like you said, Lee, about when we were like going around with dinosaurs and stuff like that, that it was a protective mechanism that doesn't really serve us, things that aren't threatening us like that. So you're absolutely right. So your environment is something you can control, the things that you let into your brain. You soak in.
If we all take in more positivity, that will start to erode that need to react to the negative. But
it does take a lot of effort for you to dial into the positive. You need a lot of it for it to take effect. So, and we talk about sort of audio, social media, be conscious about what you watch on your TV. What do you watch? Do you keep watching the news? Because I was speaking to my family members, and they're watching news all the time. Oh, I can watch the news, and they're watching it. And they had to, one of my friends said, I turned it off because it was actually really making me scared. But that was great because they recognised that point that it's making them scared, so they turned it off. But that's the thing we've got to watch.
One of my, and I think it's what you watch and what you put out there as well. And I say that because one of my siblings is very much into positivity and wellness and self positivity, and they'll post 3 or 4 enlightening quotes a day. So they're not just doing it for themselves, but they're putting it out there for people and letting other people see it as well. So I think there is that, surround yourself by it and share the things you like and encourage that mentality. I suppose that's our, collectively, that's our little bit that we can all do to help kind of reverse the trend.
100%. And as I say, maybe this family member should link in with the nation. We should follow that account.
Maybe we should.
Inspiration Nation. No,
whoever runs our social media should get all over that.
Definitely, yes, Lee. Right. But yeah, so yeah, that's me. Ryan, have you got any thoughts on it? Because I know, you know, we got any further thoughts after hearing what Lee and I've been talking?
I think you guys have nailed it, to be honest. But I think it's all, as I said earlier, it's all well and good, you know, trying to stay this positive side and kind of not being able to control what you can't control. But that's so much easier said than done.
Absolutely right.
For people, you know, in the moment, things are so different, and I think that you know, you'd be doing people a disservice by not kind of acknowledging that, I guess. But I mean, I get it. Everyone in a blue sky world would love to live that way and let everybody take all the fuel they want and things like that. But life doesn't really work that way. I suppose you have to look at why news is so negative in comparison to here, in comparison to places like Canada, as you've mentioned. Is it because negative news sells better than positive news? Is that because more people watch negative news than positive news? Is that because there is just much less negative news in those areas? But also, on, you know, playing devil's advocate this way round, or our way round, you know, talking about negative news also spreads awareness about things that need to have awareness spread about. So whilst there is a negative story, there are development opportunities and even positive opportunities out the back of them, depending on how you view them. So it is all, you know, 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, I guess, in terms of these things and how they can be portrayed and come across. And the news is, you know, all news is there. You could find positive news if you looked hard enough for it. It's just, you know, do you look for that, or do you just take what's given to you, I guess?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think it's how it's delivered as well, which is important. So we do need awareness, and it's just the way how that's done. You know, there could be awareness about petrol, but it doesn't have to be, oh, you know, it's running out and we're going to be out, you know, out by a certain amount of time. There could be different ways of doing it. So there's the awareness without the panic. And again, I think we've all got a personal responsibility to how we respond to that, right? So I think there's a real, for us as individuals, how do we respond to that? I think there's a massive piece around self-awareness that we all need to still work on. And we're all working on it, right? Because there's always times when we are not self-aware and we react, and we all do. We're human beings, for Christ's sake. So it's just, you know, making sure we put that in the right place. But no, Ryan, you really hit a good point there. And I think you pointed, so you can choose to, you know, look for what. So what you're looking for, you're going to look for the negative, you can look for the positive. You can actually, if you go to, people say like people like us, like Twitter, are really negative. But that's because people are looking for the negative. You can really find positive places on Twitter, because I can vouch that, because all I've done is follow positive accounts, like accounts that are supporting personal development, because I love that. And I'm really keen.
Listen to IN, listen TOIN.
A nice segue, Lee. Is that what you wanted to continue
That's
with?
it. Did you like that?
I did. It was really good. But no, honestly, I like that, Ryan, because it is about what you can choose and what you choose to listen to, watch, and all those sorts of things. So, you know, so if you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube, and I'm going to let Lee do his advert, I suspect. I don't know if he's done it enough yet. You know, just make sure you choose what you watch. You know, you don't let it get fed to you, as Ryan was saying, because you can get lead fed to you. But, you know, make a decision to say, I'm now cutting this out and I'm going to choose something that's going to serve me. I'm going to be informed, but I'm not going to be panicked. In the same way that you go to a restaurant and somebody will say, this is the soup of the day, or this is the meal of the day. That, you know, that's by comparison, that's your headline on the news, and that's the main important thing. But that doesn't mean you sit there and that's the only thing that you intake. You still view the menu and order whatever you want. So why not, you know, if you're finding that all you're seeing is negative news or negative connotations of things, then just look harder, I guess, or look further.
The menu.
Don't look for the special.
That's it. If you want to look for it, it'll be there. Pick from the right bit of the menu. Love it. Show reference there. Not a long spiel for it. Social media at Listen to Wine, Listen TOIN, and head over to inspirationnation.org.uk. Coaching service, shop, Joe's blog. It's all there. We appreciate all the support from everyone out there in the nation. All Joe's getting ready. I don't have my mug with me, but Joe might have a mug shot for the camera on behalf of Inspiration Nation.
I'm the one that's only got the mug this week. Yeah, I won the mug game.
You are the winner of the mug game. That is for sure, Joe. That is for sure.
Game time.
Right. Final thoughts, guys. Takeaways from today and anything we want to add in. Joseph Noya.
You beat me too, because I usually find I get to this stage and everyone's forgotten about my takeaway. So anyway, takeaway for me. Okay, what is the takeaway for me?
Ryan, what's your takeaway while Joe differs?
You can't control what you can't control.
Love it. Always a good bit of advice. One of the strong ones to help anyone through with any situation. That one should be on a t-shirt as well, inspirationnation.org.uk. I am going to take away from it, surround yourself with positivity, be conscious of that, and not in a naive way. I look at my Daily Mail app every day. That has a reputation in this country. I don't let it sully me though. I look at the news. I also look through social media, and I look for the good that's in it and not buy too much into negativity. And I'm going to make sure that is something I continue to do. Jose.
So for me, it's to respond and not react. It's to respond to the situations. Were you going to say so? You're going to interrupt me there. You look like you're going to jump in with something there. What was you saying?
I said I love it. Oh. There's no need for this aggression. Be positive and caring about your fellow man.
So yeah, it's about responding instead of reacting. And okay, you saw me react to Lee there. You saw that, right? So yeah, it's the response that's needed. So when you see a situation, don't go off the back of the emotion. Take a step back, breathe, and actually respond, and have an intention of why you're on this planet, right? An intention to help, an intention to serve others, intention when you go up, when you're in situations. So I'd say set your intention for the day. When you wake up, what is it you want to do today? Be that person who responds rather than reacts.
Awesome stuff. Some great Inspiration Nation advice there. Appreciate again everyone out there listening. Check us out across all podcast platforms, YouTube, Jose Noya Inspiration Nation, and of course TikTok. And our new time of somewhere between 6 and 6:30 GMT every Tuesday. We appreciate all the support. We thank you all, and we will be back again next week. So I will count us down, and we will be an uncoordinated rambling mess at the end of the show. 3, 2, 1. Inspiration Nation.
Catch you guys
later. Shambles.
So I want to know now, what's your biggest takeaway? Don't forget to hashtag it with Inspiration Nation in the comments below, and make sure you commit to action. So you can catch all our other Inspiration Nation podcast episodes right over here. So go check them out. And also, don't forget to subscribe, because that will tell you when your next video goes live by you hitting that amazing bell. So until next time, it's Inspiration Nation, and I'll see you right over there.